So if you look at page 21, it's just a bit of a revision on transactions, documents, journals, and ledger accounts. So we will just quickly go over that. We will again show you how posting rules work. On the next page, exercise 12 starts. So as I said, I'm going to get you started on 12, and then I'm going to tell you to finish that at school or at home, and make sure your teacher shows you the memo and explain everything. Okay, and then we will get started. Right. As I said, we are looking at this on the slide, and we are seeing that this lesson is about starting off with credit sales and returns. And as I said, we're on page 21. Now, credit sales, you should know that by now that the document is a credit invoice. You can just say invoice when it's asked. And because we issue it to customers, I'll give you a second to think quickly. The document we have in our hand as bookkeepers, is that the original or is it the duplicate? Right, it's the duplicate because the client, in this case the debtor, always gets the original. It's going to go in the DJ, and I'm not going to go through the posting, but you'll see there, the moment we have a sale, there's a selling price, and in the block on the right, a cost price. These are two double entries, in other words, and please don't get them confused with when you use the selling price, it's the first two accounts, and when it's the cost price, obviously it's the cost with the trading stock. Do not forget that we are now, especially with the work I'm doing today, have to bear in mind there's not only a general ledger, but also a debtors ledger. And you did that in grade 9. And then below that, you'll see items are returned by dissatisfied debtors in the second line. And we issue a credit note, so we keep the duplicate. Debtors allowances journal and the returns at selling price, 2 accounts, the cost of sales, 2 accounts, and then the debtor himself will want his account to decrease. If we just quickly then look at the next part, still page 21, if we have credit purchases, of course we'll purchase assets or stock, which also is an asset, or consumables, which is an expense. We now are the client because we're buying, so we receive a credit invoice. Now, because I'm the client, this will be the original invoice, and it's the creditor's journal. The entries there, they will now be, remember, not a selling and a cost price, but one total that goes to creditor's control, and as you see there in the top line on the right, you debit all the other accounts. And then don't forget, we now owe the creditors more, so that would be a credit in the creditor's ledger. The CL there stands for creditor's ledger. The bottom half or the bottom line, what if we return to creditors? We will issue a debit note, meaning that we keep the duplicate. It's in the allowances journal, and the opposite of the top entry happens. You'll see now we debit the creditor's control because we owe him less or them less, and we credit all the other accounts. And then in the last line, creditor's ledger is also influenced. Right. What I just said is summarized here as well, so I'm going to test you. You'll see I've drawn arrows there between the debits and the credits. So there's a reason now with the DJ, the top one, why we debit credit like that. I'm going to ask you, and then you'll see the answer appearing. Why, when we sell on credit, do we debit the debtor? Asset plus. I hope that's what you were thinking as well. You're welcome on your page 21, where that block is. You can put an asset plus above there in pencil. Why did we credit sales? Some of you will say, well, we already did the debit, now we must do the credit. That's true, but you have to know that sales is an income which makes the equity go up. Okay, let me go a little bit faster because remember, this will be recorded and available for you for the rest of the year in case you need to recap. We will see cost of sales was debited. Why? OE minus, it's an expense. We will see trading inventory or trading stock credited. Why? asset minus. Right, we're moving on to the middle line, which is the debtors allowances journal. The opposite now happens. Now the debtor, the asset, is decreasing, which is a credit. And you might want to debit sales to say, well, I'm just cancelling the top one. But it's very important that you understand that we have a debtors allowances account. You learned that in grade 9 already. Because picture a business, let's say a shoe shop. They're selling 100 pairs of shoes a month. When shoes are returned to them, obviously, what would the reasons be? It doesn't fit, or they don't like how it looks when they get home, or wrong size. There could be damage to it which wasn't caused by the client. When they return it, let's say during the month, 10 pairs of shoes were returned. If I just cancel sales, then 100 minus 10 is 90, and it will look in the books as if we sold 90. We need to know separately that for every 100 pairs of shoes sold in the month, 10 pairs were brought back. For some businesses, they would say, that's 10% of what I sell. What's wrong with my product? So why are they returning it? Or am I not giving them good advice at the point of sale? So keeping sales and debtors allowances separate for now until the end of the year is very important. That's why we have a new account, debtors allowances. Let's go back to the slide. Next, trading inventory up. So the asset goes up. Why? They brought it back. The cost of sales, which was previously in the top line debited, is now credited, OE plus. Not because it's an income, because the expense is cancelled. And then at the bottom, why would I credit creditors control through the CJ? Because the liability goes up, I owe them more. And then you will see I've got two options there by the debit, because look at the left, what if we bought an asset? Let's say you bought equipment. Or what if we bought an expense like stationery, OE minus? So there's more than one reason for those debits. And lastly, CAJ, the liability goes down. I return things to them. And then whatever you debited previously will be credited, because either you sent an asset back or you're cancelling the expense. Right, you will see in front of you, or on the slide, I now have activity 12. And if you just look on your paper, if I take page 21 away, you will see we are now on page 22. So in other words, it says here, please read on your paper, that you must post from the journals to the general and debtors ledger. Maybe underline that on your paper, because it's not just general ledger, it's also debtors ledger accounts that must be done. Very important. Now look at the journals we've got here, and I've only started on the slides. Cash receipts, cash payments, debtors allowances, and then this journal, you can mark it with the little star there. You have not yet done the general journal. You should be doing that probably start of term 2, if I'm guessing. And then you must then know that by then you've got, I think, 7 journals that you've done already. Yes. Can we quickly go through those journals? Let's see if you can keep up with me or think of them quickly. Which 7 journals have you, or which 6 journals have you done so far? Cash receipts journal, cash payments journal, petty cash journal, debtors journal, debtors allowances journal, creditors journal, creditors allowances journal. Ooh, how come I'm on 7 already? Let me quickly think. Yes, you've done 7. Okay, when we did the petty cash this year, that was 7. Now, as I said in the second term at the start, you'll do the general journal. That will be number 8. And then there's 2 more, which is called salaries and wages journal. Somebody in grade 10 asked me yesterday, so how many journals will we have done by grade 12? And I said the good news is still the same 10. So we're focusing a lot on journals in grade 10, but then we're moving on in the next grades into different work, more analysis and understanding and ledgers and partnerships, companies. But for now, you focus on doing the books of a sole ownership, being able to do the journals and the ledgers. That's your focus at the moment. Right. I have just changed something here. I've taken the cash receipts journals totals away. Of course, it's filled in on your page because I want to show you something. Do you see? Okay, I see there's our first WhatsApp. Somebody is saying they never did petty cash. If you haven't done petty cash yet, please ask your teacher when you see them again when they're going to do it, because it's part of additional cash transactions. The chapter in your textbook on additional cash transactions, and just ask them when you're going to do the petty cash. Don't worry, it's not a big, difficult journal. Petty means small, so it's for small amounts of cash. If you picture a business, not the money in the till drawer, that would be cash float, not the money at the bank, that's your current account or your bank account, not the money you've invested, that's called fixed deposit. It's the smallest amount of money in a little metal box usually that can be locked and at the end of the day put in the safe for small payments, like we need milk for tea time at the office. Okay, so don't worry about it. I'm sure you'll still do it and it won't be more difficult. It will be easier than what you've done before. Right. If you look at this cash receipts journal, you will see there's a new column there that wasn't there in grade 9. You will see there is discount allowed. The person who's saying, explain again, just deleted it, so I think he or she understands now. Okay, so discount allowed is new work. Why would we allow discount to a debtor? Let me explain that again. We sell on credit. Why? It widens our customer base, so you'll increase your sales. But now you might have poor cash flow because you have to wait for the debtors to pay. If your credit terms are pay within 30 days, you might want to motivate them to do that because, of course, people don't always do what they should or they just can't pay. And you say, if you pay within 30 days, we will allow you, let's say, 5% discount. So this is a new column in your cash receipts journal. Right. Look at these totals. Bank is 5,725. Sales is 3,000. Cost of sales, I've done it in blue. You can circle it or highlight it just to keep it separate because it's not money. It's the cost of the trading stock that is decreasing. There's your debtors, 2,905, but you're going to see that something doesn't add up at the bottom. Why? This is the one method. There are two different methods. Don't worry about it. Let your teacher also in the next lesson explain to you which one your textbook and teacher likes, and then the other one will be shown next. Okay, so you will see there at the top, our Rex, how much did he pay us on the 10th? He paid us 1,300. But how much discount did we allow him? We allowed him 150 Rand discount. Now, if you pay me 1,300, I allow you another amount discount. What do I take off from your debtor's control or from your debtor's balance, from your debt, 1,450? So if we now, I've put a few pluses and minuses there, just understand the following. How do I check my totals horizontally? Because we always do that in journals. 5,725 is equal to, if you want to put it on your calculator, I'm going to put it on my calculator, so we can just have a look there. I'm going to take my 3,000 Rand, that is the sale, so follow on your paper when you look at what I'm calculating. If I plus the 2,905, that's obviously the amount under debtor's control. And then what am I going to do? This amount includes discount, so I didn't get all of this from them. So you always minus discount allowed, and if I minus 180 discount allowed, what is this amount of 5,725? It's the total of the bank column. If I just complete what I just said, do you see the green? It's an equal sign. The bank total is equal to sales plus debtors minus discount. Now this is this method. That's why under debtors control it says total. Okay, later on I will show you the other method. The 2,000 Rand is put on ice, so to speak. Forget about that. That's not money. That is done after you've posted as follows. I've just started this and then I realized This is something which, because we don't have another lesson after this one, not this term anyway, we need to get to the other two questions, just to get you going, and then please complete it yourself. There will be a bank account, because that's my first column. There will be a sales account, that's my second column. I leave cost of sales with trading stock quickly out of the picture. I will open a debtors control account, and yes, there will be a discount allowed account as well. You have the memos available, you have the teacher, you'll do it with him or her. But just quickly, how do we decide? Bank asset plus, you should know that by now, and it is posted like that. Total receipts from the CRJ 5725. Now, for every debit, as you know, there must be an equal credit. So I will now have to go credit the sales because it's an income and equity plus with 3,000 Rand. Okay? If I then go to the 2905, the assets going down, you will credit. Now, this is where I stopped, because here I want your teacher to just go over that with you, or if you don't get it in the first lesson, get a friend in class who you know understands the work, make an appointment, work together. The person who will be helping you will also learn from explaining to you. Do you see that it's no longer bank like you said in grade 9? Because as I explained, this amount includes discount. So it's bank and discount allowed from the CRJ 2905. And then you will see, because of the 180, it doesn't yet balance. And that is why I said there in the yellow block, because we have to move on now. I just wanted to get you started there. Complete the rest of the posting and mark with your teacher, or use the memo, or get help. I'm just going to look at the WhatsApps quickly. Somebody is saying here, I'm from, let me see, Gwelani, can you, school, can you please repeat the posting rules? And then there's another person saying, how do we calculate cost of sales and selling price? Because cost of sales and selling price was done previously, I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm making a note here on my paper. If we have time after 14 and then 13, cost price plus gross profit equals selling price, and I'll come back to that, okay? I promise I'll come back to that. And the posting, there's I understand the questions coming in now would be people saying, wow, but there's something in the past I don't get. I don't understand the debtors ledger, one person says. Another one says, please calculate cost of sales and sales for me. And then there was the person who said they haven't done petty cash. We will do these questions, but you have the help at school, so please make sure, speak to your teacher, learn that now. Don't wait till after the test when you haven't done well to then want help, because as you know, every day there's new work. So please make sure the teacher knows. Don't be shy to ask in class. Say specific. Don't say, please, just don't tell the teacher, I don't understand the work. Please be specific. So go to school tomorrow morning with a specific question. These ones you're asking me now, ask the teacher just to quickly explain something. They can always start the period with something that must be recapped. So I hope you understand that soon. Let's see what we're going to do now. I have, before we move on, just given you a debtors control account. So I can promise you that your debtors control account will be in every test and exam from now on, as well as trading stock and creditors control. So make a note, those three accounts: debtors control, trading stock, creditors control. Now, what does this account mean? I've given you the memo here, okay? You see, it's the memo of this journal posting exercise. What does the first entry mean? I've shown it to you there in yellow. It is the amount due by debtors on the 1st of May. And why did we put it on the debit side? It's an asset. Next entry. What does this DJ entry mean? If you don't know how to do general ledger, when you read my explanation, see, or the transaction, this is the total credit sales to debtors. Circle, or say it louder, like for yourself. This is the total credit sales to debtors. So do you see that makes up the double entry? I debit the debtor, and the sales that I write there is the contra account. What is the one below that? Now, this one you might not be comfortable with yet, but in additional cash transactions and also now in the module on debtors, you would have learned, or you will still learn, that if a debtor pays me, look at the credit side there by bank and discount allowed. That means the the debtor paid me. What if that debtor pays me with a check that is dishonored? In other words, he doesn't have money in his bank account. Then I will be notified by my bank, and I'll contact the debtor, and that is what the RD here on the debit side means. It stands for refer to drawer. In other words, phone the debtor, and then he owes me the full amount again. Okay, and then of course you'll see here that the journal debits will be 55 Rand for whatever reason, and that is the chapter you're doing later. That's journal number 8 around the start of the second term. So you can come back to it then, don't worry about that now. On the credit side, you'll recognize that that amount is the total amount received by debtors, including discount allowed. Now here comes the alternative method. I don't know if I'm allowed to say textbooks, but there where I live, the schools are using the New Era textbook. So if that rings a bell and you're using that one, or that's your teacher's preference, then it looks like this. Now, what's the difference between the entry on the white block at the top, the 2905, and the blue block I've just shown you? Look at this. The bank amount, if you figure out from your journal later on, the only amounts they paid me is 2725 in total, but the discount allowed is 180. So if we say in the top method bank and discount allowed, it's 2905, and if we say the bottom method, it's separate. Be aware of the different methods and ask your teacher which one you will be using in tests. Right, lastly, debtors' allowances. I've given my debtors some allowance for returns. They owe me less. And then, very important, what does it say there in the bottom block, green? It says balance due by debtors on the 31st of May 2019, and this is a new thing, if no errors were made. Yes. It's not just you, even your teachers, that make errors when they do bookkeeping. Real bookkeepers, qualified people, humans in other words, they also make errors. Now, what will you do when your control account is wrong, or where your individual debtor is wrong? We're going to now skip exercise 13, which is about fixing these errors for debtors, and go to exercise 14, which is fixing the errors in my creditors ledger. So if you go then for me to page 25, I'm showing you page 25 over here. I know this is small, but we have it on the screen shortly. It says, the information relates to POSA stores. At the top it says creditors reconciliation, if this is a totally new word for you. What does reconciliate mean? I'm sure everyone in this country knows what it means. If you and your friend has differences and you're sitting down, somebody's sort of helping you with it, or you do it on your own, and you settle your differences, you have reconciliated with one another. So if there are differences and we sort it out and we then agree, we have reconciliated. So debtors or creditors reconciliation means exactly that. And you'll see here, and I'll show it on the screen shortly, these two balances don't agree. The control says 51,100 and the creditors list says that. Now, it doesn't help you don't know what they are, so can I just quickly show you here? I'm drawing a general ledger account, and now I'm drawing a creditors ledger account. A general ledger account has the debit there and the credit there, and let's make this creditors control and let's make it with a balance on that side. And they say that the balance at the end of the month is 51,100. Of course, it's credit Y because it's a liability. Now, what's this thing here? This is the creditor's ledger. Debtor's ledger looks the same. And you would have done a lot of these already. Debit, credit, balance, and of course, we've got the date in the folio column. So now here, if you're going to do a creditor's ledger, one of our, we don't have their names. Oh, there's a busy suppliers, and there's a, okay, we'll get it shortly. Let's say busy suppliers. So that would be, for example, my creditor's ledger number 4. Some people just would say creditor number 4, but it's in my creditor's ledger. Same as here, where it's liability minus plus. When you do creditor's ledger, you must please write at the top that I'm going to minus this side plus that side. Now, if you made an error here, it needs to be corrected. If you made an error here, you made a wrong entry somewhere, you need to correct it. And once you're done, the two amounts must agree, and you've done creditor's recon. Let's get started. We love in tests and exams, even up till matric, because this is a chapter also done in grade 11 and grade 12. So get it, understand it now already in grade 10, then you make your life easier in the next 2 years. Why should we reconcile the creditors' control account with a list of creditors? And remember now, the list is a summary of all those creditors' ledger accounts. For 2 marks, I've basically said it. Just add to that the words internal control. So you're going to write in your answer, or tell your teacher if he asks you, it's a form of internal control. There will be a whole chapter in your textbook on internal control, to detect or find errors, omissions. What does omissions mean? It means things were left out, and possible fraud. Right, so errors, which would be human errors. Omissions, well, either date differences, so somebody left it out, or again, human error. But possible fraud is not human error, that is dishonest people who's trying to steal money through the creditors' system. Okay, I've got for you there let me see, this exercise number 14. It says, the information below relates to POSA stores for July 2019. I always tell the children, whatever grade they are, when they start a question, firstly, who are we doing the books for now? Because remember, all of you sitting there in your class, me sitting here, we are now the bookkeepers of POSA stores. Then also the date is important. It is now July 2019. Calculate the correct total of the creditors list on 31 July. And then they give me the information. Now, that's the information. I've circled it in red, and that's the other information. Therefore, those two aren't the same. If you have 10 creditors, the total of their individual balances must equal the control account. So in other words, I have put there that we must find the errors, and I've made a tick for the 51 and a cross for the 50240. Please do that on your paper as well. Normally, and in the next exercise on debtors, the amounts will both be wrong. Like I've made a mistake in the control, and I've made mistakes in the individual accounts. Okay, it sounds like it's okay for a real bookkeeper to make mistakes. It's not okay in any job. We don't want to make mistakes, and especially when we're working with money, finances, because it's very dangerous that you make an honest mistake. Maybe you didn't feel well that day, but the auditors who come and audit your books, or your boss or your manager, thinks you are trying to do something which is unethical or illegal. So as bookkeepers, we need to be meticulous and do things perfectly right. And even though it's school and it's homework, you are supposed to want to do everything perfectly correct. Every time you do another exercise, maybe of the same kind, you should improve. And everyone can get to a point, everyone, where they make no mistakes. Okay? It all depends on and how important it is for you to get help and to practice, practice, practice. Okay, so in this case, they only say we must fix the list. So let's start. I've got the answer block, which is still on page 25 at the bottom of the slide. It's just smaller. It says correct total of the creditors list. So you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to do the corrections there. And we're going to start with number A. There's 4 of them. Number A, goods returned to a creditor valued at 6,800 Rand was posted as 5,600 to the creditor's account. I'm circling, also something I teach everybody. You don't need a separate highlighter. Take your pencil that's in your hand, circle what happened. Returned to a creditor. And then next, why did I put a minus? Please do that as well. Some transactions, I'll owe the creditor more. Other transactions, I'll owe them less. And before we do the answer, we need to know that this transaction is about returning things and owing less. Then we read further. The 6,800 is the correct amount, but we posted it as 5,600. You following? Make the tick on the correct amount and the cross at the wrong amount and do the sum. 6,800 minus 5,600 equals 1,200. So if we follow the minus, we subtracted too little from the creditor's account. I know this is brand new work. I'm going to give you time so that that can sink in. I'm going to repeat. We return goods to a creditor. You should know now that's the CAJ, it's a debit note issued, and we should minus. But we made a mistake. We minused 5,600. We have to now do what? Look at the bottom. There's the answer. We must minus another 1,200 from this creditor. I hope that helps. Remember, again, it's saved. It will be available online, and you can then go over this at your own pace. And please do that. Right, let's do number B. Credit purchases of stationery for 605 was posted to the debit side of the relevant creditor's account. First thing I'm going to do, circle. What am I going to circle first? I wonder who's done it already. Right? You want to know, is this a purchase, a return, a payment, a discount, a transfer? We shall circle credit purchases. I'm not circling stationery now because I'm not doing double entries and the whole posting. Otherwise, stationery would, of course, be the other account. Credit purchases, immediately, I don't even have to read further. I put a plus. Then I read further. For 605 was posted to the debit side of the relevant creditor's account. If you look at it, you might say, well, what's wrong? I posted it to the relevant creditor, the correct creditor, in other words. It's that debit side that's the problem. I'm going to just, for the remainder of this activity, have one big thing written down here on my paper, if you want to write it down on your page as well. And that would be, we're busy with a creditor. A creditor is a liability. On what side does a creditor, which is a liability, increase? Plus on the credit side, minus on the debit side. Now look at this. This one says that we debited the creditor with 605. But what did we do? We didn't return goods. We didn't pay him. It's wrong. So in other words, how do I correct such a mistake? If you had to go there, but you went there, which is basically what happened, if this was sport, I shouldn't talk sport, my husband will say, but okay. Your captain said, please move to the right, and then you go move to the left. So how are you going to get there? Well, you first have to move back to where you were, or 1 meter to the right, and then now we are where we should. So how do I cancel a minus? You'll have to plus the 605, but now you just cancelled it. Now you're just back to where you were. Then you plus it again. So in accounting, the rule here is if you should have debited or credited and you may go to the wrong side, if you debit by mistake, you have to credit twice. If you credit by mistake, you have to debit twice. So wrong side means go double to the other side. So you will see here, I said in the yellow block, the debit side of a creditor is a minus under liability minus, and we should have added the amount. So now we have to do a double plus, as I explained. Right, the first 605 is to cancel the first minus, and the second 605 is to do the actual plus because we purchased. Number C. I see there's more messages. The people who are getting stuck here with, please ma'am, can you repeat or can you explain discount? And same school again says repeat posting rules. Another one at 1532 said how to calculate cost of sales and selling price. Okay, as I said before, I do sympathize. You obviously need help with that. You're going to ask your teacher tomorrow morning, okay? Please do that. But what I'm going to do now is to get the explanation on the video for when you get to this very important reconciliation topics. Okay, we cannot cover in 3 lessons, consecutive weeks, obviously all the work you've been doing since the school started in January. So we're trying to capture the most important parts, and then when you go over them again, you will understand that. The stuff in between that you've missed, like let's say you never really understood in grade 8 and 9, how to calculate selling price and cost price, you need to go over that in class again. Okay. Number C. I read a payment. I immediately circle payment. And I immediately make a minus. Why did I not even read further? I'm going to read further, it's important, but when I make, and remember everything is from our point of view, if I make a payment, I owe them less. Now you read further. Of 2,100 was posted to both stores instead of busy suppliers. I've got 2 creditors, their names are similar. The one is both stores, the other one is busy suppliers. Which is the correct one? Busy suppliers is the correct one. Posted to this one by mistake. So now you've got to concentrate, focus on the correct one. You paid busy. He must be minused. If I minus the wrong person, I'm going to go plus him again. The explanation says, we should have subtracted from busy suppliers, but not from both stores. So now we will add the amount back to both stores. We didn't pay him. We owe him what we owed him before, but subtract from busy suppliers. And that means, and I said the minus 2,100, that would be the guy I actually paid, busy suppliers. And I said plus 2,100, that would be the one where I made the mistake. I know minus 2,100 and plus 2,100 equals 0. But remember, we are indicating real entries, and you're going to really have to change both base stores and busy suppliers account. Last one. Creditors with debit balances were transferred to the debtor's ledger. No entries were made in the creditor's account. Now, I circled debit balances. If you look there in the number B on the right, there by debit side, I explained the whole thing on the paper. Debit for a creditor is a minus. So there's the minus. Now, can I quickly explain that? How is it possible that a creditor can have a debit balance? I'll explain here on the paper. Right? Have a look here. Same concept. You owe a creditor 1,000 rand. By mistake, you pay him how much? 1,200 rand. So if you now look at that account, 1,000 credit, 1,200 debit, I overpaid. Now, if you overpay someone, who owes who? They now owe me 200 Rand. So in other words, this specific individual creditor has a debit balance which is a negative. So that is possible. And if we go back to our transaction here, we want to transfer this creditor to the debtor's ledger. Now, please don't think we must always do it. This case, I should explain, could be something like this. I buy from Waltons. So Waltons is my creditor, but at some point, I start selling to Waltons because I produce something that they want. So I can also sell to them, and I will have two accounts for them, Waltons the creditors and Waltons the debtor, until I decide I need to close the creditor's balance because now I'm only selling to them. And this is what's happening here. You want to remove a creditor. Now, if you go back here, how do I remove a debit? No entries were made. To transfer any debit balance, you have to credit it. And the creditor with a debit or negative or minus balance must therefore be credited, which is an increase or a liability plus. And if I do that, look what happens. If you calculate that, you will get 51,100. And if you go back to the start of the question, here on your question paper, we started there, and we said that, I know it's small, that is the correct one, and we now have got our list also as 51,100, so that's why we are smiling. Right, congratulations, you did with me your first creditors reconciliation. Extremely important. You will be asked to do that in grade 11 and in grade 12, and the good news is you're also already learning it now, and it doesn't get more difficult, you just need more practice. We've got less than 10 minutes. I'm going to start the debtors recon so that you see we now are doing the same thing, just now we work with an asset. Okay. So on the paper here, I'm going to tell you, oh, I see it's a bit see-through. I'll take a new one. You can write down on your activity 13, where we're going to start now, that we're now working with an asset, a debtor. They work like this. Everyone knows that now. So please remember, increase on the debit side, decrease on the credit side. Our page we're working from now will be page 24. Everything we need to do is on page 24. So what did I ask you earlier? When you read there on your own, activity 13, we've changed jobs. Whose bookkeeper are we now? Kenwin Stores. What month are we working with? September 2019. There's your instructions. I'm not going to answer the question 1 and 2. I'm going to focus on this. So if you want to work with me, instead of just listening, which might be a good idea, maybe just focus on what I'm doing and do the exercise later. You're going to see that we're doing debtors recon now. What did I say earlier with creditors recon? Why should we do that? We have 5 minutes. Same thing. It is a form of internal control to detect errors, omissions, possible fraud. And this is what I want you to look at. It is on your information sheet, activity 13, debtors recon. It's page 24. And it says instruction number 2, calculate the correct balances. Now, there we look. What do you see? The debtors control is 15380, and the debtors list, I just have 3 debtors, James, Alice, and Mabusi. We have to find the errors. So now both are wrong, and you have to focus which one is wrong, correct it, and you have to get the same answer. Now, because of our time limit, I'm going to try to get you to the end, but it will have to be fast. Okay, so bear with me. Remember, you watch it later and then you pause. Sales from the total in the debtors journal was overstated. Overstated means added up too much. So totals, look at the blue block at the bottom, go to the control account and not to the individual debtor. So in other words, the control account, there's your answer, bouncing in, must go down. Let me just explain about totals. The control account, the T account, gets totals from the journals. The individual person, like Mr. James, Alice, or Mabusi, they get individual posting. Surely, I can't post to one debtor the sales to everybody for the month. It will be chaos. The person could get a heart attack. So in other words, individual to the debtor's ledger, totals to the control. Let's look at the next one, number B. An invoice for credit sales issued to James, not entered. You must circle invoice and credit sales and not entered. Now, same as before. Invoice for credit sales, a plus. When we say a transaction was not entered, it must be done from the start. So in other words, picture this. Here I am the bookkeeper, you're the bookkeeper. We never recorded any of this. So the person, James, needs to be plussed because we sold to him. It hasn't been entered in the debtor's journal, so the total is too little, so it must go to the control as well. Let's do that. There, James went up by 400, and there the control goes up by 400. Why both? Because it says not entered. Number C. I did warn you that I'm going to go fast, okay? So it's just C, D, E, then we can say goodbye, and then go over this again and again and again, and remember those questions to your teacher tomorrow, okay? Right. James bought goods on credit for 800. It was incorrectly posted to Alice. Please circle that quickly. I'm reading the questions the wrong way around. Here, at 7 minutes past 4, somebody said, what is debtors reconciliation and how do you find out which amount is wrong? Okay, I'm just going to carry on. This is work you would not have done in class yet, so don't expect to understand it. Just listen and remember this is to be used by you in the weeks to come. Okay, circle James. Circle goods on credit, and there's the plus, because if somebody buys from me on credit, he owes me more. But it's the wrong person. What are you going to do? You're going to tick the correct one. There's the green tick for James, and you're going to cross by Alice. Alice should not have been plussed. Alice will phone me and say, what's going on? I did not buy from you. So we go to Alice. Well, there we go to Alice, and we minus it from him. And James thought he was lucky, but now we say, mistake, you did buy from me, there's your plus 800. Number D, what will I circle? I see there's people asking, where do we get your video? People ask that every time. Please, guys, make sure the people in your school that's in charge of organizing or getting the telematics for you, that they help you this week, because you're losing time and you obviously still don't know where to get the video. So, there isn't a next week lesson for you, but it's your school's responsibility, your teacher's responsibility. They can print out something for you that you can paste in front of your book that you can then access later on your cell phone or at the school, internet, wherever you have it available. And it's very important. Okay, so our time's up. It seems I've got to say goodbye. I'm going to quickly, in the seconds we've got, show you a happy face. I wonder if I'm allowed to. Look at that. Errors corrected, 16480 equals 16480. Goodbye, and thank you very much, and work hard.